Last but not least, we have made it to the final of the 5 dimensions of touch, slide. Slide is described as the dimension of touch which describes vertical movements up and down a key wave. One thing I love about hardware synths and controllers is opening filters with my hands while I'm recording or performing. There's something about turning a knob that brings life to what I capture and produce. It's happening in real time, and every time I do it, it's completely different. One thing I don't love about them is that in order to turn a knob, I have to take a hand off the keyboard in order to perform a filter sweep, and since I don't have a third hand, I can only accurately turn one knob at a time. With slide, I still get that tactile experience of performing the modulations, but with so much control and on a note-by-note basis without ever taking my hands off the Seaboard. So thank you for that. Let's take a closer look at slide and see what's possible. Navigate to preset number 115 named Triangle Mono Lead. The graphical representation of slide is very much the same as glide. The x-axis is representing how far we travel from the point of origin, with the starting point always being smack dab in the middle, regardless of where our fingers land on a key wave. If we slide up, we travel to the right, and vice versa. If we slide down, we travel to the left. Typically, this modulation is mapped to some sort of filter, so as we travel up the key wave, the filter opens, and as we travel down, that same filter will close. We can map multiple parameters to this gesture, so I no longer need more than 2 hands to do everything my ears are telling me to do. If we click on slide, we can see that it's currently mapped to the cutoff on filter 1. I'm going to add some more angles to the sound and gesture by turning on the noise generator and selecting white noise. And then I'm going to turn the bass level of this down to -20. Then I'm going to map slide to close the cutoff filter on the noise generator as I move up the key wave, and keep it open as I slide down. So as the cutoff on the low pass filter here opens, the one on the noise generator closes, so I get a pure sound at the top, and then I still maintain some nice noise at the bottom. Let's see this in action in a polyphonic sense now. Navigate to preset number 56 named Antarctic Pad. Slide is mapped to the cutoff and resonance on sample 1 and the cutoff on filter 1. Currently, the slope of the modulation is pretty steep, so we're going to get a lot of activity happening right as we perform this gesture, and as we pull down, sample 1 becomes largely inaudible because of the cutoff. I'm going to play a chord here and independently open the filter on some of these notes so you can hear how slide is working on a note-by-note basis. Just like glide and press, in expression mode you can adjust slide sensitivity by pulling down the middle touch fader on the Seaboard. If we tap on the bottom, the middle fader is illuminated and we have turned slide off. If we tap again and turn the sensitivity all the way down, it makes it so that your finger only has to travel a very small distance to reach full modulation. So for me, this fader is very visual since its dimension and adjustments are the same as the gesture itself. If it's up all the way, visually it represents how long a distance my finger needs to travel to reach the full modulation, and if it's all the way down, the same is true. Now that we've looked through all the dimensions of touch and how expressive you can be when you tie them all together, the question really becomes, how do I practice them all? Outside of some of the specific tips I gave you, my suggestion is to try and not get overwhelmed by all the possibilities. Follow your ears and continue to make music however you typically do. Being expressive by definition means that you're conveying a thought or a feeling, and those need to come from inside of you. When you're making music and playing around with a preset or building a patch, really listen to it and ask yourself, what are you hearing, or what would you like to hear? Can you achieve your goals with a certain technique, or do you need to map something to one of the gestures? Once you've got the sound moving how you'd like it to, come up with an interesting line or sequence and practice it over and over and over until you feel that it's right. If you let your ears lead the way, the rest will fall into place. The more you play your Seaboard, the more you use equator, and the more you use your ears, the more masterful you will become. My last piece of advice here is to remember that less is always more. A single gesture can go a long way, and when you try to add too many things in just because we can, our results tend to sound messy. Sometimes a single note with the right amount of vibrato will elicit more of an emotional reaction than the same note with vibrato, cutoff, and resonance modulation with LFO adjustments and volume modulation. We're here to make music, but that doesn't mean that we have to make things complicated, so use your ears, use your ears, use your ears.